Hi, welcome to Talking Books and Stuff, the program that talks all about books and writing and stuff. Here's your host, Dennis Rimmer.
Hey, welcome back. This is Talking Books and Writing and Stuff. Today we're talking with Arthur Douglas, and we're talking about a book called The Motel, Lessons in Regret. So, Arthur, how you doing these days with all the weird stuff that's going on?
Well, pretty good. Holding our own. Have actually been not affected that much, other than not having to be able to go anywhere or go out for dinner. But for the most part, we're surviving.
That's good. Sounds like most of us. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Arthur Douglas. Where did you start out in life?
How do you mean by start out? Where am I from, or
where are you born? Where'd you go to school? That kind of stuff.
All right. Well, I was born in London, Ontario. I grew up in Waterloo. Went to university briefly at University of Western Ontario, and have done a lot of things in my life. Everything from owning a pizza franchise to being a vice president of a publicly traded company to running newspapers to managing hotels.
Now, that brings us to The Motel. So, what's the inspiration for the book The Motel, Lessons in Regret?
Well, I managed hotels for about 8 years, and one day we were talking and about some of the things that occur, and one buddy said, if you told people this, they'd never believe it because it's beyond belief, some of the things that actually occur. And most people don't have a clue what goes on in hotels and motels, just even down the street from them. Every once in a while they might see some activity, but really the day ins and outs of what goes on.
Yes, it sounds like you actually have been working in a motel when I'm reading the book about the check-in process, and you've got people that come and go for a couple hours at a time. Especially there was a big snowstorm at the start of the book, and they you had some people coming for stress relief the next day.
Yeah, actually, all those events that happen at the motel actually happen in one way or another. Sometimes I've taken a little bit of license on the descriptions, but the heart of the events are unchanged.
That's right.
So the names have been changed to protect the guilty, I guess. I don't know.
or the innocent, depends how you look at it.
Yeah.
Right. We're talking with Arthur Douglas, and the book is The Motel, Lessons in Regret. Now, it reads to me sort of like a diary. It's like 6 months or so. You go from January to June or July. Is that kind of the intent you had when you started out?
Yeah, it was kind of the tying event with the season, sort of a look at a year that happens in motels, sort of a year snapshot kind of thing, I guess. There will be a part 2. It's underway right now, and hopefully that'll bring us to the end of the year. But yeah, it was kind of like a 1 year kind of snapshot of what happened.
And now the two main characters we have, Jack is the manager, and Angie, the other main character, from the way I'm reading the book, sort of kind of based on real life people, I suspect.
Yes and no. A little bit on real life people and a little bit of fantasy, maybe. I might leave it at that.
Okay. And like you said, it's part of a series, so you've got 1 and 2. Is there anything after that, or do you think you'll just leave the story with 2 books?
I think I'll probably leave it with 2. I've done a lot in my life, and one person told me one time that write what you know. So I've had a pretty interesting life. I have lived part of my life in Banff, Alberta, out in the mountains, and Lived part of my life in Grand Bend on the beach, and some different events that I've been through in a couple of years of living in a beach town. Has some stories that are sort of rumbling around in my head. Some things that happen in a mountain town out in the middle of nowhere. Again, rumbling around in my head, possibilities.
So when did you actually start writing? Were you always writing a little bit here and there, or how did this book come about?
The first book I started writing was about when I was working as a vice president of a publicly traded company, but and some very interesting things happened there. But I don't think there was enough to really bring sort of a full book out of it. So I kind of left it, and I kind of like writing in private, and along came the idea for the hotel or the motel when I was actually working and thinking, okay, well, let's start doing some research, and I started writing down some different events that occurred wrote them down as they occurred, and started writing it. It took me about 6 years to write the first book.
That was my question, was how long it took. So you have a busy life. When do you find time actually to do some writing?
Sometimes more than, not as much as I would like. Sometimes I'll come home from my day job and I'll sit and write for maybe an hour or two, or something comes up. Sometimes I'll get up in the middle of the night and just write down a few ideas. I take a couple days off, so sometimes I'll spend one day writing and going over different ideas, or things will come to me that, maybe this belongs sort of later on in the book, or that kind of thing. And so whenever I get a chance.
Yeah, I know the feeling well, because that's pretty much the way I approach it. So you always, what am I trying to say here? The cover photo, I've got a note here and I've dropped it. The cover photo of The Motel, Lessons in Regret by Arthur Douglas. Is that a picture you took yourself, or where did you find that?
No, I got that off a website that had different options and had the free licensing for it. So I believe there's a reference to the photographer in the book somewhere.
Well, we'll look for that as we get further in, about halfway through myself. So The Motel, Lessons in Regret. Actually, back to the cover photo, that kind of does give us a suggestion of what's going to happen. It doesn't look like it's a high-end motel, and yet it doesn't look like it's a seedy motel. So it's kind of sort of in between the motel you write about in your book. Is that a true estimate there of?
Yeah, sort of mid-row, midway. Not the best, not the worst. Jack tries to do what he can to keep the motel looking as best he can, but a can of paint here and that kind of thing. But the cover also said to me there was a little bit of chaos going on in the picture, and that's kind of sort of a feeling that happens at motels. There's always a little bit of underlying chaos always happens.
I remember as a kid flipping through magazines or comic books, and they would always have an ad that said, yeah, be a motel manager, and they had a picture of a guy sitting out beside the pool. So I always thought to myself, yeah, that sounds like a nice life. You just kind of sit around. But it's not really like that, is it?
No, there are days like that, I suppose, when there's not much going on, but that can change quickly, very quickly.
And weather plays a big part in the way a motel or hotel operates. Is that what you found?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially in the wintertime, we had a situation at one of the hotels I was running where they shut down the main highway, and they were bringing people in off the highway in snowmobiles and four-wheel drives, and cars had been buried 2-3 feet under snow and the ditches, and there's that kind of thing. Then the other side of it, you'll get people in the summertime when it gets really, really hot and humid, they'll just check into a hotel to for the air conditioning because they don't have any at home.
Oh, right.
That could affect that kind of thing.
So it's like everything else. There's a lot more that goes on behind the scenes than we actually realize in real life. Talking with Arthur Douglas about The Motel, Lessons in Regret. It's part one of probably a two-part series. Now, when you're writing, sir, do you plot things out, or do you make notes, or you just kind of just wing it and then revise and write some more? How does the whole thing work for you?
For me, well, a little bit of each. I have a list of events in point form that I go from just to jog my memory, and it doesn't take much. I just put down a few words and remind me what happened, and then I sort of go along in the story, and the part with Jack and Angie kind of just sort of comes as it comes. I just write it, and it just sort of flows out, and then the events that occur just sort of fit into and I fit everything in together, kind of thing.
Yeah, Angie's an interesting character. She's working at the motel part-time, at a bar part-time, got 2 kids to take care of. She kind of seems to be like a lot of people who have lots of potential, but they end up, for various reasons, different choices in life, whatever. I'm not judging people. That's just the way things happen. So she has a lot offering, but she kind of got stuck in this sort of a low end, I'll say, for want of a better term, a low-end way of life. Is that kind of how you see it?
Yeah, that's it's kind of a compilation of some people that I know and the way some of their lives have turned out. It's a lot of potential when they're in high school, and bad decisions made or decisions made for them. In some cases, it was the death of a parent that sort of put their life on a different path, or some people, some girls get pregnant, or just have an idiot boyfriend, or whatever it is that sort of distracts them from their goals and their dreams.
Exactly, and we all have those, and then life happens, and it goes off the rails sometimes. So the publishing process for The Motel, Lessons in Regret by Arthur Douglas, what kind of process did you use to get this book between covers?
Well, I used the Amazon system, I guess you could say.
Uh-huh.
I just figured that I'd self-publish, see what happened. Went through other processes. It's actually a pretty good process, makes it pretty clear. They have the ability to print one book at a time, which is a little more expensive, but a lot cheaper than paying somebody to print you 1,000 books and then you never sell any. So at this point, they give you the ISBN number or whatever that is, and the way to promote it and all that kind of stuff. So it was really a little bit of a learning curve, but fairly simple to do. And very helpful. So it got out there, and that's where it is.
So that's an interesting comment you made about getting a bunch printed up, or the what do they call it, print on demand. So you're finding the print on demand process works better for you than getting a bulk printing?
Yeah, and I can order some myself, which I do, which I pay the printing cost.
Mm-hmm.
So I always have books in my desk. I have a drawer full of them that I sell here and there. But most of the sales are digital. So there's not the same need, I don't think, to print as many books as the past. Although books certainly have their place. I don't think the physical book is going to disappear from reality, but I think that digital is the easiest way to get things done. And it's quick and seamless, and Amazon handles all that. So and that's actually the cheapest way to go.
Yeah, I've got some people who do the one way and others who do the other way. So it's interesting to hear your comments, because I'm a physical book kind of guy. I've got to have it in my hands, and I don't like reading off a screen. But lots of other people feel the opposite. It's you take something with you on your device, and it's right there wherever you go. You don't have to lug around a bunch of books. You've got 10 or 50 of them on your device, so it's a good way to go for some people. Arthur Douglas, The Motel, Lessons in Regret rather. What was the hardest lesson you had to learn in the book publishing process, at least for you individually?
The hardest lesson?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a good question. I guess the hardest lesson was the editing. And I'm not sure that the editing is as good as it could be. But finding little things, and I had my stepmom go through it. I had my wife go through it. I did it digitally. And a couple other people that read it through for me and all the little things that they found, and a lot of when I'm writing, sometimes I'll dictate rather than actually type, and sometimes you miss some errors that the dictation makes when you do that. But basically, the hardest part of the whole book was the editing process. Writing the book was relatively easy once you get going, but getting back and editing and making sure that when you make the edits that you aren't changing the meaning of something with the grammar, making sure the grammar is correct so that what you really want to say is being said, rather than making a grammatical change and changing the whole meaning of the sentence or the whole feeling that you're trying to portray. That's
right. That's what I've heard from a lot of people. The writing is one thing. Is like 10%, and the other part is the 90% of the rewrites and the edits. And then other people have said promotion is a hard thing for them. So it's once you got the book together, that's one thing. Then you got to think of all the other stuff that goes with it as well. Arthur Douglas, The Motel, Lessons in Regret. Arthur, where can we find the book? How do we get copies?
Well, it's on Amazon.com. And you just go there and do search. Also, you can go to my website, which is arthurdouglas.ca, and there's links there where you can purchase the book. If you want to contact me directly through the website, I'd be more than happy to send you out a book. I'll even sign it for you, and go from there. But that's the two best places to go, I guess.
Yeah. What suggestions do you have for somebody who says, "Oh, I read your book. It's great. I'd like to do one." What do you suggest to people when they come up with those kind of questions?
I've had a couple people ask me, and I just say to them, well, if you've got something that you know, write about it. Something that you're passionate about. Some people are passionate about cooking or skydiving or whatever. There's those kinds of books, but sometimes you have to have a passion for it. If you're just writing a book because you think you're going to make money, not something. There's got to be a passion behind it, because making money is, like you said, promotion is difficult for sure. But part of writing a book obviously is making the money. But you have to really want to write the book to sort of tell your story. I like to tell stories. So whether I sell 100 or 5,000 or a million books doesn't really matter to me. I'm telling my story, and maybe in 50 years, my great-great-granddaughter will pick it up and say, "Hey, that was my granddad," right, or something.
Yes, I think you're right there. Write what you know is what they always say. But yes, you have to really want to do it. How do you write a book? One word at a time. So you just gotta.
Yeah.
The hardest thing to do is put your butt in the chair and go to work. Arthur Douglas, thank you very much for your time today. The Motel, Lessons in Regret. We'll look for it on the web, Amazon.com, or your website, arthurdouglas.ca. Again, thanks very much, and good luck in the future.
Thank you very much, Dennis. Have yourself a great day.
Thank you for visiting with us today. This is Talking Books and Stuff with Dennis Rimmer. Contact him at dennis@talkingbooks.tk. Thank you, and may all the good news be yours. Oh, and don't forget to check out his book, The Great Canadian Notebook, available across Canada and at amazon.ca.